talk sports!
All right, it's friggin' May 8th.
Is it really? Who knows? Who knows what day it is, Dave?
Days like Groundhog Day now.
It's that friggin' murder hornet that's bringing this weather from Asia with it.
Oh.
I've had about enough of Asia. I know that's not going to be real popular, but I've had about enough of it for a while.
I'm going to rename my fantasy football team the Murder. That's a great name, the Murder Hornet.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Apparently today I found out something new on it. That bees, to protect their hive, can fly around the murder hornet and make it combust.
Yes.
In flames.
That's
what
pretty
a fabulous
like a
thing.
science fiction movie.
I say the three of us, okay? We're going to try that. When we see the murder hornets, I want you guys to come to my house and let's run in a circle.
Only we can go
whoop, 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 whoop.
how we're doing it. That's all.
I think we should just get a blowtorch and a match and combust them all that way. Yeah.
I'll tell you,
I mean, what's
you know,
next? Is this the end of the world? We got plague. We got pestilence. We got all of it all of a sudden.
we just needed something else to go into a news show.
Yeah,
Well,
I guess right. We can't keep pounding you with bad
Thank
news.
God for the murder hornet. That's all I'm
Well,
saying.
I'm actually a little disappointed. I think that the locusts outsourced. They didn't want to do the job themselves. They said, hell, we can get the murder hornets. They work at a lower rate. We're just going to call them up.
And they're immune to COVID-19 since they're coming out of Asia. So.
And they have the cool name. They're like Fonzie. They're like the Fonzie of the insect.
Yeah.
Yeah. They get all the bee chicks, I'm thinking, too.
I'm sure they do.
Good, man. Have you been
Better not
waking
let 'em
up
circle
at
around.
5:30? I know you have, Gary. Fletch, have you been
Montreal
waking up
expert.
at 5:30 to watch Korean baseball?
I can't do it, guys. I just can't do it.
I mean,
Oh,
I have not gotten up at that ridiculous 1:30, but I have watched some of the replays. Just curiosity more than anything. So
well,
everybody's
they have
got the name Kim though.
They have the
First
great
name, middle
stadiums.
name, or last name.
They're great stadiums. They have cheerleaders, Fletch. From
It is the most bizarre thing, yeah.
They have them lined. There's nobody in the stadium, but there are cheerleaders lined up on the dugouts the whole way through center field.
With masks on.
With masks.
With masks.
So they're ugly cheerleaders.
We don't know.
It's
we don't
bizarre.
know. I've sent the murder
Bizarre is
hornets
the
there
word.
to scare them so the masks fly off. But it's interesting. The most interesting thing is Carl Ravitch just looks exhausted every night.
He does. He's either he don't like getting up in the morning or something else.
Yeah,
I agree. He doesn't look very good.
I don't think he's enjoying it. But
Yeah, I don't think he is. And I don't know. What do you think of Giambi? I've had about enough of Giambi in the past, and I've really had enough today watching
Well,
it.
I'm not sure this is what inspired Carl Ravitch to be a sports fan.
I would think
I'm on fire, man. I'm on fire.
You are.
that might be it, Dave. That
Well-
might be the real reason he looks that way.
It could be. It could be. I'm thinking there are other things. The cheerleaders with the masks on, that might have inspired him to be a sports fan. I'm not sure. But,
I mean,
you know,
how many times are they going to say, though? I mean, to be funny about this, oh, it's a high quality of baseball. How many times are they going to say that? Like,
at
I
least
mean-
7 a show. It is good baseball. I like the
it's a little
baseball.
more old school baseball. I will agree with that, Dave.
Yeah,
It is.
it was good baseball. But
I mean, one thing I think the major leagues, they keep talking about what the major leagues are going to take note of, empty stadiums and how they're going to do all this. I'm not really sure any of that's true. But strike zone, they're swinging, like we talk about. They're not up there standing out the box every pitch. Pitchers are throwing the ball over because none of them are really big enough to throw it that hard.
it
They're
takes
swinging, and the games
about
move.
2 hours to get through 7 innings.
The games move, yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
Anyways, tonight on the show, we're going to talk about our moments that kind of inspired us to be sports fans. I'll start out with a couple, then we'll get on to talking. Strangely enough, there were a couple, and they were kind of weird. My first baseball game I ever went to, I started noticing baseball in '68, Got excited with the Tigers because my cousins were about 5-6 years older than me, and they lived in Detroit, so they kind of got me fired up to pay attention to the Tigers that year when they. But Uncle Ed, who we've talked numerous times here about, took me to a San Diego Padre New York Met game at Shea Stadium in '69. And it was kind of cool. It was kind of the one thing that really made me a baseball fan. I remember he took me, first thing he did, he took us up to the club. I had a pork chop with barbecue sauce. I didn't know I liked barbecue sauce till then. Okay, so maybe that fired me up for barbecue. And, he takes me down and he says, pick any helmet. He's thinking I'm going to pick a Met helmet. No, pick a Padre helmet. Because it's new. I'm 8 years old. This is a new team. So he's a little pissed at that. A little pissed, but he lets me get it. And, we go down. I'm loving the game. I'm ducking several times as Don Clendenin is zinging foul balls. We're like on the one row right past the net. So we're getting some foul balls zung past us by Don Clendenin. And then, of course, with the Mets up by 1, we leave in the 7th inning to be trapped, as is Uncle Ed. But that kind of got me really fired up. I remember it was the first World Series I really followed. Kind of followed the end of that. Got pumped up by the Bob Moose no-hitter. That really was the beginnings to my love of baseball. Football would be a year later, sitting in my first football game at Three River Stadium. The Steelers were beating up on the Browns for the first time in God knows how long as they're introducing Three River Stadium. And there are 3 guys up in the upper deck who took a Browns pennant that a Browns fan had, threw it on the ground, and lit it on fire. And so that arson is, my first memory of Pittsburgh Steelers football. But the next year, probably that Oakland Raider opening game is probably the first one I really remember.
That was my first NFL game.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was when I really kind of took hold of football. And probably college football, a game Pitt got crushed at in '71 against Northwestern was my first college football game. But I just remember loving the atmosphere, loving the bands, loving the bands are what I remember that. And to this day, when Tony and I go to a Pitt game, we make sure we get behind the band going into watch them coming down and then follow them into the stadium. And it kind of took hold about then. And Johnny Rogers, Nebraska, Jerry Taggy, Jack Mildren, classic game, Nebraska. Oklahoma I watched soon after that. And, those are probably still my 2 favorite sports. 1A and 1A is college football and baseball. And I'll just mention one more and I'll head out to you, Fletch. The thing that fired me up about boxing in the 70s, I like boxing, but when I watched Matthew Saad Muhammad and Yaki Lopez, it just, what was a blood-curdling, probably 77 or 78, was that?
Around
78, yeah.
That just, began a love affair that, I wish the sport was more popular at this point, but that kind of fired me up for it.
Yep.
But, Mr. Fletch.
Well, Dave, I thought a lot about this today, and for me, it was a combination of both games and also items. So memorabilia, toys, whatever you want to call it. I had, as an only child, having to entertain yourself sometimes. One of the big things that I had when I was starting to get into baseball was the Johnny Bench pitchback. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Sure.
Had one.
The frame with the net you threw into it, and
yep.
So that was a big thing for me. I wear this hat to honor my uncle Swaggy B, who took me to a number of games, including that Raiders game you were talking about, Dave. And I'll remember it was certainly a different time because a person one section over had smuggled in a bullhorn. Who the hell can smuggle in a bullhorn now? And he was firing up the bullpen and shouting at Marv Hubbard. of the Raiders.
Did he have that great skin back then?
Oh, and he was like, oh, yeah, Swaggy B always has a great skin. Come on.
Yeah.
So the guy pulls out his bullhorn, and that, no, I'm not making any kind of like a sexual reference there, but he literally had a bullhorn. And he's referring to Marv Hubbard as Mother Hubbard, and then dropping the motherfucker Hubbard as he
people laughed. Nobody called security.
No.
People laughed. Yeah. I was stunned by the whole thing. Electric football was big for me too. We've talked before about the Codeco baseball game, the spinner baseball. Couple other ones. I don't know if you guys had the basket game with the levers and the ping pong ball.
Oh yeah, I love that game.
I don't think I did.
I love that game.
Yeah.
I was, if I had only worked on my actual foul shots as much as I did on that game, I would have actually had a decent career as a point guard.
I had a great midcourt shot on it, man.
It was a beautiful thing. Yeah. And then, in terms of some of the games, about the same. I mean, 71 was and I wrote about it in the book. That was really my first full year of baseball, of being a fan. It was also Three Rivers Stadium's first year. But, to me, the thing that really stood out from that and just cemented my love for that game, for the game of baseball, was the 1971 All-Star game, where you had 24 Hall of Famers, if you include the coaches and managers.
Yeah.
You had Bench, Aaron, Clemente, Reggie Jackson hitting a monster shot that hit the light tower at the old Detroit Stadium, Tiger Stadium. Frank Robinson, Harmon Killebrew. These are all guys that I loved through the whole Codeco baseball game. So I was able to see them. One thing that we're experiencing now, guys, which is kind of it's a mixed thing for me. We're no longer oversaturated with sports. It was when we were kids, we didn't see that much. And the game of the week was a big deal.
Yep.
Particularly in Pittsburgh when it was American League teams. Because you didn't get to see them.
That forced you to follow the game and not your team.
That is correct. And right. I remember getting the Sunday press, and they would always have the full stats that you would be able to see. Everybody in the league, they would list them.
Yep.
That was always a cool thing for me.
Yep.
I read a lot, and I'm going to see if I can do this, guys. This was a collection that I loved, and I think you guys probably had the same thing. If you can see it yet.
Oh, those are awesome.
Yep.
I used to get all of those. That's how I learned about, a lot of the old-time baseball players. I learned about the AFL through these. I was more of an NFL guy, but so these were just tremendous.
Get that one.
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah. That was probably the first book I ever got at one of those school book fairs.
Yeah. And not that I should be doing that during live TV, but see great minds think alike. You can see some of these.
I have both of those. The great upsets. Yep.
I got my baseball ones, and even, believe it or not, there was a couple of hockey ones.
Yeah,
I couldn't find them for now, but I agree with you completely on those. Written well for a kid. Tons of great pictures.
In terms of football,
don't forget these.
Oh my God, I have a couple of those out in the other room.
Yep.
Oh man.
And the other thing that was, I don't know about you guys, but the day that Street and Smiths came out, that was a big day down at the news.
Definitely. Oh yeah. Definitely.
And the who's in baseball and all of those. But in terms of some of the other games, that playoff game between the Chiefs and the Dolphins. I remember sitting there. Oh, Dave.
Tony Dorsett, man.
You mean this one, Dave?
Classic.
With the backwards helmet.
No
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, in those days you had to get that stuff. Today, I think the big loss, Chris, that you're pointing out, I agree with, is it's all on video and TV now. Back then, you had to work to be a fan. You had to work to be knowledgeable, which made it, to me, a very just a more fun time, honestly. Maybe it's just because of what I was used to, but couldn't agree with you more. So.
And baseball cards. I mean, the ones that were the cherries were the when you would get the Kellogg's 3D ones.
Yeah.
Those
Oh,
are amazing.
I
Yeah,
still
they
have some.
kind of move when you turn it. Yeah, it would move a little
Next
bit.
time you come to Pittsburgh, Gary, I want you to bring a stack of cards. We're going to pitch cards.
Okay. I
All
got
right.
plenty of them around here. One of the things I've been doing with some time, which is not, the time comes and goes because of what I do for a job. But when I have time, I have been organizing stuff. So I probably have 1,000 cards again. I could trade you guys for one too, like I said a couple weeks ago. I got boxes of them here that are not part of the stuff that are part of the sets I have. So
Do you guys remember Instant Replay?
Oh, the little disc.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that thing.
I have that somewhere in the house. I still have that.
I can't find it. It's in my mom's house somewhere. Every time I go back, I do a little search. It's like the holy grail at the house right now. I'm going to find that damn thing.
Yeah.
I have a Jerry Lucas disc or John Havlicek. I'm sorry. Not
John
Jerry.
Havlicek,
John
yeah.
Havlicek. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there was the Wilt Chamberlain.
Oh, yeah.
There's even some auto racing ones in there.
Probably.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Dick Trickle.
I do miss Overman and Patrick with that one. Oh, they just refer to him as the man. What do you got, Gary? What brought you into all this?
I think a lot of it's kind of similar to yours. Like, Dave, I think, I'm a year behind you. So I kind of remember my dad a little bit watching. They were all day games. I remember him watching the Orioles and the Mets series. There's a number of plays in that series were kind of strange. The J.C. Martin play down the first baseline. And my dad was an umpire most of his life. So, I mean, he paid attention to a lot of stuff and talked about it, but not really that knowledgeable about baseball at that time. But then my brother, who was much older than me, I was kind of an only child too, Chris, in a lot of ways. He brought me those gray borders. I guess it was 1970.
Oh, yeah. Fabulous cards.
Yeah, and I didn't really pay a lot of attention to sports up there. My mom was not really a sports fan. My dad was working all the time or whatever, a couple jobs at that time. So I remember I was fascinated by those cards, and I asked my brother about this all the time. He's like, well, yeah, when baseball comes back, we'll watch it, we'll go to it, whatever. And 71, the year of 71, for a lot of reasons, really would be what brought me into it. And then about the stuff with the books and stuff, I'll talk about that in 2 seconds. But 1971 was a late 1970 in the fall was the Brooks Robinson Red Series.
Yeah.
And all the games were in a day. And I remember I was just turned 8, talking to my dad about the game. My brother bought me those cards, and Brooks had a tremendous series. And I saw the Orioles a lot growing up in Harrisburg. So I remember it was a big deal to watch them playing for a world championship against the Reds, who were an interesting team in themselves. And I remember distinctly just loving that World Series and watching pretty much every minute of it that I could. In those days, you could do it because the games were during the day. And it kind of stoked me along with the cards. But then all the series in 71 were really interesting ones in the big three sports and even the football.
Right.
But particularly like in the games that I tend to pay the most attention to. And baseball obviously was the Pirates-Orioles World Series. So I wasn't necessarily an Orioles fan. I just liked the game, but knew that Orioles team from seeing them a lot, previous World Series. And then that Pirate team was interesting, as we all know, for a lot of reasons. It was a great World Series.
No, it was a very underrated World Series. One of the better.
It was a great World Series, right? It was a back and forth and a 7-game one. But my parents, since my brother had played college basketball and was a pretty good player, my parents both watched a lot of basketball. And my dad would always talk about Lou Alcindor in those days, and the Bucks and Baltimore Bullets. Again, the Bullets being right down the road from where I grew up. My mom used to love the Bullets with Jack.
Greatest basketball uniform, by the way, of that era.
Yep, the orange and the white and the blue. Yep,
Oh,
they were great.
I got to go across. I got to go to the rival league for some better uniforms there. Those ABA uniforms were top notch.
There were some top-notch ones. There were. But
you
the
liked
Bullets
that
were
Nets patriotic one, didn't you?
I like the Chaparrals.
That was a good one.
You were no Floridian though, were you?
No.
That was a crazy one. The Bullets wore the same thing in the NBA a few years later when it was orange, blue, and white.
I liked it. I liked that uniform.
Yep. But that was basically the Floridians' Baltimore. But the Bullets were followed heavily in Harrisburg, so they go to play the Bucks. Although the Bucks swept that series, it was a very entertaining series with, Alcindor being new to the league and the Big O everybody talked about for the Bucks. And the Bullets were a damn good team who had upset a couple teams, the Knicks included, to get to that fun. I remember watching that pretty much every minute of that with both my parents, ironically. My mom liked basketball more than any other sport, but the hockey series that nobody really remembers was a great series between the Canadians, which had a lot of veteran Canadians, and a Blackhawks team that was kind of on the rise and went 7 games. And a lot of those games were back and forth and went down last minute. So really the TV, growing up where I did, kind of being fairly distant from a lot of being able to get to a major league game, the TV was really the first thing. And those final series, I remember just reading everything I could about it, watching every minute. My dad loved hockey, so do I. I distinctly remember watching a lot of games which are on national TV in that 7-game series with the Canadians and the Blackhawks in the afternoons on the weekends. So, and then 1972, because I was so into it, I didn't think about anything else. Big surprise after the cards and collecting the books and getting my hands on everything I could. I had Baseball Digest to that, Hockey Digest to that, the magazine
The old ones with the rosters.
I had saved those. Yeah, I wish I had saved those because I'd get them every time. I'd go up to the drugstores or whatever and get them, read it cover to cover, probably numerous times.
Don't worry, Gary. I saved my full collection of Soccer Digest, so I have NASL rosters that you're more than welcome to have.
Yeah. I do remember that. I remember that being out there.
Yeah.
I didn't buy that one consistently, but I remember that. Yep. I mean, I love those publications.
Wait a minute. Did you ever buy a Soccer Digest, Gary?
I think I do. I think for some reason I had a couple. You know when it was when Pele was came. Remember when Pele was a big deal, and he came over.
New York Cosmos.
Yeah, he came over to play. I remember in my neighborhood that we would talk about that, and I remember buying a couple just to understand the game a little bit. So I don't think I have those anymore. My mom did throw a lot of stuff out, unfortunately, but. Then in 72, I started going to live games, which, I saw the Pirates play in Philly in 1972. I saw a number of games in Baltimore, great teams, Oakland A's. Watching White and Blue in 1971. He was fascinating to watch. He was a fireballer.
You remember my afro in 80 and 81, Gary?
I do remember you having somewhat of an afro then, yes.
How did I rate to Elliot Maddox?
There you go. He had a big one. He did.
Well, you were no Oscar Gamble.
Oh, who was Oscar Gamble? Yeah. He could ramble, though.
You could ramble. Yes, indeed.
He could.
He always looked like he was going to fall asleep, facially. He had that big afro. But then when I started going to live games, obviously I became more hooked. And I didn't get to see any pro hockey till probably maybe 74, 75. We went down there and saw the Buffalo Sabres the year the Flyers won the first title, which was a pretty good trip. It was actually harder to get into Philadelphia than it was in Baltimore. But the Hershey Bears, to me, is an iconic, almost the Green Bay Packers of minor league hockey. And I was right down the road from there, and we would go sit right behind the benches. And when you sit that close to the game, I remember seeing a lot of guys became great NHL, Guy Lafleur, guys like that, playing the AHL. I mean, I was completely – hockey hooked me more than any other game live because it was so fast and there was so many things were going on. And we could get close to it, in those days. And I would say to my dad, hey, we go to a hockey game. He's like, well, why don't we just get the season tickets? We're going to go to all 41. But I probably went to 15 and 20 of those games years I started getting a little older, 9, 10, and never lost any passion for it since.
The other thing, guys, that I think probably for all of us was a thing about this big that you can put on your pillow, and that was the transistor radio.
Totally.
And being able to get the games and especially in the summer at night where you can get the AM signals from St. Louis sometimes if everything was going right. You might be able to get a Cardinal game. You might be able to get a Mets game besides the Pirates.
By the way, it's been 16,387 days since the Flyers. The Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I mean it's becoming one of the. He talked about Toronto's streak, but this one's getting almost in the same ballpark. You think about it. That's going on 44 years in a city of that size. That's amazing.
Well, the thing that's amazing is how successful they've been. It's not like this is a team that is.
Correct.
They've been a successful team.
The last decade, they've been a step above mediocre. They really can't go very far. They play some great stretches during the regular season, but you're right. Over the course, if you look at winning NHL franchises, they're in the top 10, but they haven't won a Stanley Cup in 44 years. It's amazing. It's a shame because this year I thought they were on their way to a chance, And the
So
whole thing changed.
we can blame Corona on the Flyers being close to winning a Stanley Cup.
It certainly derailed. It certainly derailed what to me looked like their best chance in quite some time to get somewhere. So
had the Flyers had a bad record, we wouldn't be.
we might not
in a
have it. Yeah, I think
situation.
I'm sure they're completely related. So sure they're completely related. But Chris is right. I agree. All of the stuff together, the cards, which you had to collect in those days, you couldn't just buy the whole thing. You had to go out to the store to get the baseball digest or the.
How important was the checklist? And remember, the cards didn't
checklist.
come out all at once. They didn't come out all at once.
No, it was in 6 different series, I think. If it was.
And then there was the high numbers. There were the tradeds.
Yep.
There were the league leaders were always a key one to have too.
Which was as if a 5-year-old went and drew a hat on a baseball card.
Yeah, these were some of the worst airbrushing
they were bad.
you'll ever see.
They were bad. They were certainly bad.
So does Swaggy B not need airbrushing? Is that
Swaggy B is for a guy nearly 80. He's got some skin, man.
Man,
Got some skin.
oh,
I mean, you had to work, and I couldn't agree more. I started to sense. I mean, I talk out of both sides of my mouth. I mean, I'm thrilled that you can buy a package that you want to see any hockey game, you can see it. But on the other hand, it took away the uniqueness of it. I was fortunate. The thing that was being fortunate about being in a smaller city, not in a major city like you guys grew up in Pittsburgh, was I got 4 different teams. Like in baseball, I get the Orioles, I get the Phillies, and and then we got the Mets and Yankees when cable started to expand. So I got 4 different teams. Hockey, I got 3 different teams. Sometimes we even got the Capitals, on certain years for one reason or another. That was nice, but still, those national games of the week, they lost their luster when ESPN started putting the game on 5 nights a week.
Yeah,
right.
That took something away from the fun of it, the quest of it, and really having to work to be a fan, which when we were growing up, you really had to do. And that was, I mean, that to me, all of the paraphernalia, the books, the cards, and everything else, along with the games themselves, was what turned me on to the whole thing.
I got to show you boys something too. I found this popcorn holder from my first game at Three Rivers Stadium.
Interesting. You kept a lot of stuff. That's good. I can't see mine. Mine's like I got to go through. It'll take me weeks to go through some of it in boxes.
Oh man, what about games like probably my 2 first after the 3M? I don't know if you remember the 3M series games.
Yeah,
they were. You drew on them with a black pencil and kind of erased it. It didn't have
now that you mentioned
specific teams. But the first ones I fell in love with were Sports Illustrated All-Time All-Star.
Yeah.
Right.
And Bull Bound. Bull Bound especially.
Yeah,
I didn't get Bull Bound.
Very good. Very good. First it was Sports Illustrated College Football, then I named it Bull Bound. Great game though.
Yeah.
Great game.
Yeah, I got it.
I led the photo electric football. Do you guys remember that one?
That was good. I had that.
Yeah.
I had that.
And the tabletop hockey game, which is tough for an only child, let me tell you.
It is.
Did you beat yourself?
The neighborhood kids would come over, and I had the Red Wings and Rangers, which was one of the reasons before the Penguins were good. I was a big Rangers fan.
Ah, okay. We had the Canadians and the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I think I had Blackhawks and Canadians. It was probably due to the fact that they met for the title in '71. I think, because I think I got that a year or 2 after that.
And the great. What about electric baseball?
Yeah, I had that. I had that.
I have one that Dave got me a few years back, so I still have that one.
Electric football I liked better.
Oh God,
the painted uniforms and everything, I liked it better. But I think I had both.
I think they make an electric football Canadian Football League game. Wouldn't that be great?
Did you see the news today? Not to switch gears. Did you see the news? The Canadian football guy said, "I don't think we're going to play this year, and if we don't, the league's got some serious financial trouble." He's not sure they're going to restart. Now, I don't know if that's posturing for governmental support, but you should check it at the end of the day, Dave. Not good news.
Back to electric football. I had an AFL set, so I had the Chiefs and the Jets.
That's a cool set.
Yeah,
I had Rams Cowboys for some reason.
We had Steelers, and I forget who else we had.
Well, then I also went to the J.C. Penney catalog, and I
Yep.
ordered additional teams.
Yeah, me too.
So I had a league. I had the notebook with stats, fellas. Top that one.
That's pretty good for electric football. That's pretty good.
I give up. I put the white flag up.
That's pretty
Now,
good. Yeah,
now, I don't know if you guys remember the command control version of it that came out. So they didn't have the NFL contract. So it was basically a yellow team, and I think
a red, and white, yellow, and blue. You're right.
But they had these magnets, and they also had this little handle that you could actually control them.
Now that you mentioned
You can control one player.
You're right.
That I don't remember.
I do. One of my friends in my neighborhood.
It never worked.
It didn't work.
It sounded cooler than it was.
No. You're right. They were generic uniforms. You're right. No.
Oh man, what was the first baseball jersey you had?
Oh,
Jersey. You mean like a team uniform? You mean a team uniform?
Any type of baseball jersey. What do you remember being the first one you had?
so I remember convincing. We were visiting some family in Ohio, and we went to a department store. And being in Ohio, it was American League territory. And they also charged sales tax for clothes, which was, different from what we had here.
Yeah.
But I convinced my mom and my grandparents that I wanted an Oakland A's shirt and a Cleveland Indians shirt. Those were my first two. Besides, I had a Pirate one that I got at a game, but those were my two ones outside of the market, shall we say.
All right. Good choices. Good choices.
I don't remember, Dave, honestly. I think I do remember I went to a Philly game, I think it's 72, and the Phillies wore like a goofy road uniform. It was gray. It had like these stripes down the side, a goofy P on the side. And it gave them to all the kids. And it actually was the shirt itself. It was just a very small version. It had the zipper and everything like the Phillies wore. That's about the only one I can really remember, though. Like I didn't see a lot of that stuff growing up in Harrisburg. So I think it was the
I
Phillies.
got a white jersey, and I drew myself. That's 1971 Roberto Clemente.
Nice.
There you go.
That was my first. Namath was my first. My mom got us football jerseys with the number 12, green 12 on it, and it had green there. And of course, we ruined them by drawing the name Namath on the back.
Yeah.
I would tell you my Joe Namath story.
Please.
So growing up in Beaver Falls, one of my best friends lived next door to Joe's mother. And we were out playing one time, and this car pulls up. Very nice car. I don't even remember what it was. But this man gets out wearing a full-length mink coat.
In Beaver Falls.
And it was Joe Willie going to visit his mom. And he sees us out there, and we're out, and he asked if we wanted to catch a few passes.
Wow.
That's great.
Did you catch the pass?
Oh, I caught it, baby. There was no way that ball was hitting the ground.
All right.
And you could hear the ball.
Wow.
He just, that ball was moving.
Man.
And I felt like my fingers went back like this. It was painful, but there was no way that ball was dropping.
You were the George Sauer of your day.
With no stickum. Yeah.
He was bigger. I got to see him in Baltimore a number of times down low because my sister-in-law's family had season tickets to the Colts, so I'd always get to go to a game or two a year. He was a bigger man than people realize. Like, he was a bigger man than a lot of people now think back and see. And he doesn't look like the behemoth today, but he was a big man.
And where did he go after his Jet days? Where did he go after his Jet days?
To the Rams.
No, before the Rams.
Where did he go before that? You have to help me. I remember the Rams. I don't remember the in-between.
He was the star of the New York Stars of the World Football League.
That's right.
Oh, you know what? I forgot about that. That's right.
I forgot all about that.
I did forget about that. You're right.
But, he just was, when he was healthy, he was beautiful.
Beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
Just absolutely, just the
release. Marino release and a big arm. He was awesome.
Well, imagine, if you will, destroying your knee in college and just wrapping it up and going back in the game.
Yep. Want to play.
That's the
Different
him.
day.
That's
Totally
it.
different day.
You know, the crying about the brothers too was a little too much. Don't get me wrong.
I don't
Not
know.
his finest moment.
That was fun.
Little snot coming down. I thought that was crying wasn't bad, but you got to control the snot.
Control the snot.
Control your snot.
But think about this too. In Super Bowl III, it wasn't a nameless arm that really won that game. I mean,
That's
sure, but it was the way he called the plays.
Yep.
It was the way he directed that. And they couldn't get near him because of that quick release we were talking about, Gary.
That's right.
He just played an absolutely beautiful game.
He
They
did.
control the clock. They control the clock.
They control the clock with the running game, Snell and Boozer, and defense was far better. Much like the Dolphins' defense, the defense was far better than people give it credit for now.
After the 1960 Game 7 of the World Series, the other game I really would have loved to see is the AFC Championship that year.
Yeah.
I've been searching on eBay, and I have not been able to, or not eBay, but YouTube. Not been able to find it.
This the Raiders one?
Yeah.
The Heidi game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was magnificent.
Yeah. Two interesting teams.
Next week when we come back, we're going to be able to talk about a live sporting event. We don't have time to talk about it here, Gare, but we have a UFC coming up that I still am not going to watch, but I might.
I mean,
And then soon we're going to have a live sporting event. We're going to be pitching cards from our own homes.
there you go.
What do you think?
Okay. Have to get a little runway. That sounds like fun, though.
Look at the thrill. Look at the thrill on his face.
Yeah.
We'll donate all the proceeds to COVID research.
There you
There
go.
you go.
Yeah.
Gentlemen.
All right.
Always fun.
Have a good one.
Nice evening, gentlemen.
All right. Good seeing you too.
All right, fellas.